What is heaven? Not the version they hand to you in Sunday school, not the glossy image in paintings or church windows. I mean, the real thing. Because the truth is, most people carry around this vague picture in their heads. A place high above the clouds, glowing in golden light, angels in robes, singing in tune for eternity. And maybe, just maybe, there's a throne at the center, surrounded by an audience of saints. But what if I told you that image is only part of the story? A shadow of a truth far bigger, stranger than anyone has dared to explain. You see this idea of heaven as some ethereal palace. It's like looking at the surface of the ocean and assuming that's all there is. But deep beneath, layer after layer, the real mystery unfolds. Some ancient texts buried in the folds of scripture speak of not just a heaven, but multiple stacked above each other like invisible realms. The highest of them, what some have whispered about as the third heaven, that's the sacred core, the dwelling place of the Creator, the place where no lie can live, where even words lose meaning because the purity is too much to carry into this world. And then there's another hovering between light and shadow, a realm not so peaceful, one that pulses with movement, activity, beings coming and going, a place where messages are shouted into the wind, where warnings are issued not with kindness, but with urgency. This is what some referred to as the mid-heaven, and yes, that implies there's a first one too, the one you can see with your own eyes. The sky above us, the stars, the galaxies. What we call space might only be the outer shell of something unimaginably more complex, but we're not done, because it's not just the architecture of heaven that's been misunderstood. It's the residence. Think about this for a second. We throw around the word angel like we know what it means. Wings, halos, messengers of peace. But that's only one face. The word itself, it just means messenger. But the ones who carry messages aren't always delivering sweet news. Some come to protect, some to warn, and some to fight. Yes, heaven has warriors, not figuratively. Real beings locked in ancient conflicts most of us never see. And the battlefield, it's not here, not always, it's up there. Not the heaven where peace reigns, but that murky space in between, where light and darkness collide, where God's messengers sometimes have to carve a path through resistance. Because, and this might shock you, not all the angels serve the light. Some serve something else, something older than you think, something that once stood in the presence of God Himself and chose a different path. You know the name, everyone does. But what you might not know is that He doesn't rule in hell. He roams. I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't the devil locked away? Isn't hell his prison? But the ancient records say otherwise. They speak of a presence moving freely between heaven and earth, whispering, accusing, watching. In one of the oldest stories ever written, there's a chilling moment where this being appears. Not in the shadows, but among the very court of God, like a serpent slithering through the halls of heaven. And when asked where he's been, he answers with a shrug, "I've been walking back and forth across the earth." That line has haunted me, because it tells us something we were never supposed to hear. There are doors still open, and the war isn't over. Now here's where it gets darker. Heaven for many is the promise of eternal peace. But that's only true of the highest realm, the core, the throne. Down here, just beneath that sacred light, things are not so still. There's a zone where messages fly and angels clash, a place where divine warriors battle forces we can barely comprehend. And below that, our sky, the space we gaze into at night, imagining it's empty. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's full of watchers, some guarding, some waiting, some hunting. I want you to sit with this tonight, not in fear, but in curiosity. What if heaven is layered just like earth? What if it's a place of beauty and battle of stillness and noise? And what if, even now, those layers are closer than we think? In the next part, we'll look deeper into who exactly is allowed in, and who's been cast out, and more importantly, what's coming next. Because according to prophecy one day, the boundaries will collapse. And when they do, everything changes. Let's pick up where we left off. You now know heaven isn't just one place. It's a layered realm, vast and alive, with realms of peace and realms of conflict. You've also heard that not every being up there is gentle. Not every message is comforting. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. Most people assume heaven is empty of chaos, that once you step through its gates, suffering and struggle vanish. But that's only true at the very top. In that hidden realm Paul once called paradise, the third heaven. But what's happening just below it, something very few dare to speak of. There are ancient writings, fragments really, that suggest a massive zone suspended between the throne and the earth, a place of motion, of tension, of strange activity. The texts call it the mid-heaven, a space where messengers fly not just from God, but from something else. A place where announcements are made to earth, not all of them reassuring. Some are warnings, some are cries of judgment. In one account, a voice echoes from this realm, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of earth." You don't hear that in Sunday sermons, and you're not supposed to. This mid-heaven is described as a kind of corridor, not quite earth, not quite paradise, just suspended. And who operates there? That's the question. We know from Scripture that some angels reside there, proclaiming news, instructions, revelations. But there's something else, a presence, one that's allowed to linger, at least for now, a being who operates like a prosecutor, constantly accusing, relentlessly watching, never sleeping. They call him the accuser of the brethren. And the terrifying thing is he does this before the face of God day and night. Let that sink in. This figure, he hasn't been cast down yet, not fully, not permanently. He still has access, not to the third heaven, but to those regions below it. Regions many believe are safe, holy, untouchable. They're not. And when that moment comes, when he's finally thrown out, it won't be quiet. It won't be clean. The prophecy says this, "Rejoice, O heavens, but woe to the earth, for the devil has come down to you full of fury, because he knows his time is short." That line chills me, because it means something devastating is coming, a final descent. And when it happens, earth becomes the final stage. Now here's the part most forget or choose to ignore. We talk about hell like it's Satan's domain, his prison, his fortress. But in truth, he isn't there, not yet. That place, the pit, the abyss, the fire, it's ruled by two other dark figures. They go by ancient names, Death and Hades. They're different. Think of them as wardens, holding souls, preparing them for something final. But Satan, he walks free. He moves through the skies, through the heavens, through us. There's this story hidden in the beginning of the oldest book in the Bible, Job. It describes a gathering in heaven, not metaphorical, not symbolic, a real assembly. And guess who shows up uninvited? He does. And when God asks him where he's been, his answer, from roaming the earth, walking back and forth on it, just walking, watching, waiting. This paints a picture no one wants to accept, that the enemy of our souls isn't locked up in fire and chains. He's here, above us, around us, between layers of existence we can't touch. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the silence from heaven sometimes feels so loud, because the war is still going on, above our heads, beneath our feet, around our children. Not a myth, not a metaphor, a real ongoing battle between divine forces and corrupted ones. The angels we talk about so casually, they're not just sitting around playing harps. They're moving, guarding, fighting. Some of them stand watch over children. Ever notice how kids sometimes survive impossible things? Coincidence? Or is someone deflecting what was meant to destroy? In a forgotten verse, Jesus once said, "Their angels always see the face of my Father in heaven." Their angels, not the angels. That implies something terrifying and beautiful. We're being watched, not just by darkness, but by light. Now, before we go deeper, before we peel back another layer, let me ask you something. Why do you think so many people instinctively feel like the world is getting heavier, like something is coming? Maybe it's because the conflict above us is accelerating. Maybe because the war that once stayed in the skies is about to spill into our streets. And maybe those who know how to listen can already feel it. In the next part, we'll explore what these beings are really after and why we are at the center of it all. Because this isn't just about angels and devils. This is about you. Have you ever had a moment where everything felt off? Not just a bad day, but like the world itself is slightly tilted. Like something beneath the surface is broken, but we all just keep walking over the cracks, pretending not to notice. Let's talk about that today. See, you've probably heard this common idea that Satan is locked away in hell, chained in some fiery prison, while the rest of us try to make sense of life here on earth. But what if I told you that story isn't entirely true? Let's go back not to the beginning of time, but to the beginning of our mess. Earth was never meant to be like this. Not with war, heartbreak, greed, sickness, addiction, loneliness. We treat all these things like normal conditions of life, but they're not natural. They're not how it was meant to be. When Earth was handed to us, it was untouched, clean, a gift. Imagine being handed a perfectly tuned instrument, every string in harmony, and then slowly over generations we twist the knobs out of tune until it screeches with every touch. That's what happened here. But it wasn't an accident. See, this world isn't hell, but it has been hijacked. It started with a choice, a single moment of disobedience by two people in a garden who thought they were gaining wisdom, but really they were unplugging from the only true source of life. And when they made that choice, they weren't just stepping away from some rule book. They were stepping away from the presence of God, the thing that made everything whole. And ever since that moment, it's like a virus has been spreading through bloodlines, through history, through decisions, through us. We don't like to hear this part, but every single one of us, by default, carries that infection. It's not just that we do wrong things now and then. It's that deep down we've been rewired to rebel. We resist truth. We love what harms us. We fear what heals us. And all the while, this brokenness is passed on like a generational curse. Now Earth feels it. Maybe you do too. Every forest fire, every storm, every senseless tragedy, every broken home, they echo with that same groan. A creation that remembers what it used to be and weeps for what it's become. The truth is, Earth has been infected, not possessed, not abandoned, but deeply corrupted. And heaven, it's the opposite. Heaven hasn't changed. It's still pulsing with light, still full of perfect harmony, still brimming with a kind of love and purity we can't even comprehend. And the one who reigns there, he hasn't changed either. He hasn't lowered his standards or diluted his glory just to make room for our mess. And that's where the real tension lies, because we were meant to be connected. Earth and heaven weren't supposed to be separate realities. They were designed to exist in unity. Heaven's glory flowing through the soil of Earth, lighting up every corner of our world with the presence of its creator. But when we stepped away, we tore that connection. And now there's a chasm, a void. And Satan, he's not locked away. He's loose, not omnipresent, not equal to God, but active, deceiving, distorting, corrupting. He's not the king of hell. He's the vandal of Earth. He whispers into systems. He poisons thoughts. He doesn't need to possess everyone. He just needs to persuade. Subtle, slow, like rot beneath the paint. So here we are in a world that was meant to be glorious, but now groans. A world meant to reflect heaven, but now shudders in its shadow. And if we're honest, most of us live somewhere in the tension, hoping for heaven, haunted by hell, trying to make sense of both while scrolling through another day. But this is where things start to shift, because the one who sits enthroned in heaven didn't stay distant. He didn't look down and say, they made their choice. Let them figure it out. No. He entered the virus zone. He stepped through the veil, not to scold, not to condemn, but to absorb the curse. It's wild when you really think about it, that the God of unimaginable glory would compress himself into skin-bone, heartbeat breath, just to walk among the infected and carry their disease to the grave. He didn't come to just talk about heaven. He came to bridge the gap. He lived without infection, totally pure, totally sinless, and yet chose to take on the full weight of the world's darkness, not just the big stuff. Every lie, every betrayal, every whispered hatred, every silent shame, he wore it all, like a robe of thorns. And when he hung there, bloodied, mocked, forsaken, he wasn't just dying, he was transferring judgment, trading his innocence for our guilt, not as a metaphor, as a transaction. And in that moment, the gate between earth and heaven cracked open again. He wasn't just a martyr, he was a key. And the beautiful, terrifying truth is this: if one man's disobedience dragged us into death, one man's obedience can bring us back to life. But we have to decide, not just once, every day. Do we keep pretending this world is fine as it is, that sin isn't real, that heaven is just a fantasy for the weak? Or do we finally admit what we already know, that something is deeply wrong here and we can't fix it on our own? Because the difference between heaven and earth isn't just geography. It's presence. Heaven is where the presence of God reigns unfiltered, unbroken. Earth is where we've pushed him out and tried to fill the void with everything else. But he's still calling, still offering, still reaching across the chasm with scarred hands and whispering, "Come home." The question is, will we listen? Let's go a little deeper now. Because if we stop at the idea of Jesus saved us, but we don't wrestle with what that really means, then we're just repeating headlines without ever reading the story. Look, we don't like to admit it, but most of us are spiritually numb. We live like we're in charge, like we're strong, like we're fine. But deep down, there's a fracture, something raw, a quiet ache that no job, relationship, vacation, or dopamine hit can satisfy. That ache, it's the soul remembering what it was created for. It's not just loneliness, it's disconnection. We were made to walk in step with something divine, to breathe in truth without resistance, to live in a world where peace isn't rare and goodness isn't fragile. But instead, we inherited brokenness, not just from Adam and Eve, but from every generation that came after, all the way down to us. People like to say, well, I'm a good person, as if goodness could outweigh gravity. But sin isn't just about bad behavior, it's a condition. Like a shattered mirror that can't reflect light properly, no matter how much you polish the glass. That's why heaven had to invade, not just to make bad people good, but to bring dead people back to life. And that kind of resurrection, it's not something you achieve, it's something you receive. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because grace is offensive. It tells you that no matter how good you think you are, you still need saving. And no matter how far you've fallen, you're still worth rescuing. It humbles the proud and lifts the broken. That's why some reject it. It wounds the ego. You can't earn it. You can't fake it. You can only surrender. Ephesians says it like this: by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not a paycheck, not a reward, a gift. But here's the catch: if you never open the gift, it might as well not exist. That's where choice comes in, and that's where the enemy works hardest. See, the battle between heaven and earth isn't always fought with thunder and fire. Most of the time it's fought in quiet moments when you're alone, doubting, tempted to settle. The enemy doesn't need to drag you to hell. He just needs to keep you numb, distracted, busy, entertained, passive. He doesn't need you to hate God, just to ignore him. But Jesus didn't come so we could live pretty good lives in a broken world. He came to completely rewire us, to make us new. And when that happens, when your heart shifts, when your spirit awakens, something changes. You start to see the world for what it really is. You stop chasing shadows and start longing for light. You begin to crave something more than just survival. You begin to crave home. And here's the most beautiful part. Jesus didn't just fix the bridge between earth and heaven, he became the bridge. When he died and rose again, he created a path that didn't exist before. A narrow road, one that cuts through darkness and leads straight into glory. And anyone who walks that road walks with him. But it doesn't end there, because heaven isn't just a reward we wait for, it's a reality that starts now. Every time you love when you're tempted to hate, every time you forgive when it's easier to hold a grudge, every time you speak truth in a world full of lies, you bring a little bit of heaven to earth. That's what it means to live connected. That's what it means to be reborn. And one day that connection won't be partial anymore, it'll be complete. One day your eyes will open in a place you were made for. No pain, no lies, no shame, just light, just beauty, just presence. Not just golden streets and glowing gates, though that imagery helps us imagine it. But the real prize, it's him, the one whose hands still bear the scars of your salvation, the one who stepped into your nightmare to give you his dream. The one who will look into your eyes, not with disappointment, but with joy, and say, you made it. You're home. Scripture gives us a glimpse, just a glimpse. A king in beauty, a city so bright its streets look like glass. Angels singing not in chaos, but in perfect harmony. Creatures and elders falling before the throne, casting crowns at his feet. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Because in the presence of that kind of majesty, what else can you do? And John, the man who saw it, didn't describe it like a reporter. He described it like a man who had just seen the love of his life. Because that's what heaven really is, the presence of perfect love finally made visible. And you were always meant to be there, but here's the truth that haunts me. Not everyone will be, not because God is cruel, but because some will keep refusing the gift. Some will keep clinging to the sickness instead of the cure. Some will choose comfort over calling, noise over stillness, self over surrender. And when the door finally closes, not because God slammed it shut, but because time simply ran out, they'll realize the truth too late. But you're hearing this now. You still have breath in your lungs. You still have time, so don't wait for lightning. Don't wait for some dramatic sign. The invitation is already in your hands. You were made for more than this earth. You were made for light, for glory, for him. And even now, he's whispering, come home. So here we are, we've come all this way, peeled back the layers, looked into the deep wounds of this world, and maybe even the quiet fractures within ourselves. And now one question remains. What are you going to do with what you've heard? Because this isn't just information. This is an invitation. See, the war between heaven and earth isn't playing out in some distant galaxy or ancient battlefield. It's happening right here in your chest, in your choices, in the still moments of your day. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. A decision to forgive or not. A prayer whispered in the dark, or a silence that stretches into hopelessness. A spark of faith, or another day of pretending you don't need it. But I need you to understand something. You were never just a random soul tossed into a broken world. You were seen before time ever began. You were wanted even when you were running. And you are loved right now in this moment, whether you feel worthy or not. Heaven isn't some fantasy for the gullible. It's reality for the awakened. And if you're still listening, maybe something inside you is stirring. Maybe something ancient is waking up. A memory not of this life, but of the one who breathed life into you. The one who left glory to walk among dust. The one who endured thorns, nails, and silence, so you could hear the voice of the Father again. The one who looks at your scars and says, I've got them too. Come home, not just someday, not just after death, but now, right now, because eternity doesn't start when your heart stops beating. It starts the moment your heart starts believing. So don't wait. Don't stall. Don't let the weight of your past talk you out of your future. Lift your eyes. There's more than asphalt and bills and empty noise. There's light on the horizon. There's a place where everything broken is made whole, where every wound becomes a story of redemption, where every tear is wiped away by the hand that formed you. And when you finally see him face to face, when the music of heaven wraps around your soul, when time fades and love remains, you'll know you were never alone. You were always called. And the door, it was open the whole time. This is Band Interview, and now you know.